What are you doing with the defense's witnesses? Why are you investigating the defense's witnesses? First of all, Mr. Kabengu, sir, please step forward because you're dodgy. You're saying that this person was gone to do a hit and was paid 45,000 Rand in cash. Why would he be withdrawing money from his account? If Muzi is threatening to kill you, why would he be sending you a call me for you to call him, for him to threaten you? 2% is enough. Haibo Kininda.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Daddy.
And welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Nogwazi Ntombela, known as Kwazi Bear on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, darling. Now guys, as you know, every week I bring you the proceedings of the Senzo Meyiwa case, so I'm here to do exactly that. Before we get started, like this video, comment down below so that my video reaches a greater audience, and also don't forget to subscribe and super thanks if you can. So without wasting too much of your time, let's get into this video. On Monday, the 28th of October, Gininda started leading evidence with regards to a specific number that he alleges belongs to Constable Zungu. Now this said number is said to have had contact with accused number one's number around September of 2019. And if you can remember, Zungu did testify that there was a call between the two of them, speaking about this particular case, and he says that there was a call that accused number one made to him and he was in Mpumalanga, right? Now if you remember Zungu's testimony with regards to a call that was made to Uspiya, Zungu had said that he had called using Gwabini's number, and then later on Gwabini had given him Sibiya's number. So I'm thinking, this is just my thinking, that Zungu is now coming before this court and saying that this particular number is his number when it is in fact Gwabini's. Now when they look into the section 205 of accused number one, there is a please call me which was allegedly sent on the 19th of November at 16:38. Now the 19th of November is about a day, if I'm not mistaken, after Zungu's dad allegedly made a statement in this particular case. So now my question is, if Muzi is threatening to kill you, why would he be sending you a call me for you to call him, for him to threaten you? Please make it make sense. But anyway, Sibiya does allegedly send a call me request to this number that is alleged to be Zungu's number, and about 2 hours later at 18:21 there was a call that was received by Sibiya from the very same number which is alleged to be Zungu's number, and the call lasted about 97 seconds. Now the interesting thing about this particular call that was made reference to by Ukininda is that he also mentions towers. Now if you remember, Pinky Vaithalingham from Vodacom did come to testify. However, the evidence of this particular number of accused number one was not led by Pinky. So Gininda mentioning a tower for me says Pinky should actually come back and leave the information with regards to the towers as an expert from Vodacom, because Gininda is not an expert and therefore he does not have the full information with regards to the towers pertaining to this particular call. Another thing which is not new to us is the fact that they were leading evidence with regards to accused number one being in Johannesburg during the period of 2014. This is not new information. It was led already with bank statements before, and it was seen that accused number one was in fact in Johannesburg in the period of 2014, which is not in line with the assertion that his attorney, Mr. Advocate Ramasipili, had made during cross-examination. So Muzi was indeed in Johannesburg for some time in 2014. However, there isn't a single transaction that places him in Johannesburg on the 26th of October. On Tuesday, the 29th of October, it was brought to our attention that Advocate Mgomezulu will not be present, and the judge seemed to not show the same compassion or the ubuntu that he wanted to show when Gininda was writing his exams. The judge wanted us to adjourn for a month for Kaninda to be able to write his exams, but is getting a bit frustrated or irritated or agitated when Mngomezulu is not well. And this is someone's health that we are talking about. Mnisi does then ask for them to address the issue of Mngomezulu in chambers, and indeed the issue was spoken about in chambers, and Mnisi then puts it on record that he will be representing Mngomezulu for the time that he is absent. Kaninda is led with regards to the evidence of Umthethwa, which is one of the first police officers to attend the crime scene on the night of the incident, where he speaks about receiving a call saying that there is a shooting in progress, but when they got there, unfortunately everyone that was in the house had gone to the hospital, so they also decided to go to the hospital and come back a bit later. Now, the one thing that Ukininda says is the reason why he was convinced that they were intruders is the issue of the hat. Now, the hat that was found at the scene was alleged to have come from one of the intruders, right? And Kaninda touches on the issue of DNA and how all the people in the house were tested against the DNA that was found on the hat, and it excluded everyone that was in the house. Now, when he touches on the issue of the DNA of the accused people before the court, he says that there were some characteristics that were showing on the results of the DNA, and to him that meant that those people were a match. Now, he even goes as far as saying even if it was a 2% match, he would conclude that those people were at the scene. Kaninda, 2% how? Firstly, you're not an expert in DNA, and a 2% match is ridiculous to say that you would say that the person is a match because of 2%, because the expert has come before the court and had told us that you need 16 matching characteristics to basically get a positive. And in some cases, you will find a positive based on the fact that DNA on the hat consists of a male DNA, and because you are a male, there will be some similar characteristics. Just like in ballistics, when Mangena says that a gun that is shot from the same gun might have similar characteristics, but the class characteristics or individual characteristics will be different. It is the same with DNA, so there's no way that you can say because there's a 2% match, then that person is a match to that DNA. Ridiculous stuff. Nisi was spitting fire on the day because he objected to Kaninda speaking about the DNA evidence, saying that first of all, Kaninda is not an expert and the information that he's bringing before the court is nonsensical, which brought up argument from Ubaloyi saying that Mnisi should refrain from using such words as nonsensical, and Mnisi argues that nonsensical means that it does not make sense. Baloyi then talks about how ethics should work in the courts and all those things, and Mnisi says the ethics should actually start with you, because you know very well the duty of a witness, yet you are continuing to allow this witness to speak in the way that he does. He's no longer being led by you, he's actually leading you. So I think maybe you should swap roles and you should go on the witness box and he should come be the prosecutor. I was like, Mnisi? Just after Mnisi's objection, then the judge asked a question about Babu Ngashe, which was the neighbor of the Kumalos at the time, and Kaninda refers to Ngashe's statement, and Mshololo also objects to this because firstly, Babu Ngashe is no more, and therefore his statement was not read onto the record. And now Kaninda referring to the content of the statement is not procedural. So Mshololo does raise that concern and also says that, you know, she's also rising on the point of objection by Umnisi to say that Kaninda is not an expert. She even takes it up a notch by saying he's just a police officer, this one. Another issue that they touched on Tuesday was with regards to Mr. Mulder, who was the HR officer at Ndanzi's old employment, where Kaninda is still making reference to the fact that Ndanzi was not at work on the 26th, and Mr. Mulder said Ndanzi was AWOL. Now, we all know that Mr. Mulder has testified before the court already, and he has clarified that point. Firstly, he says that Ndanzi had taken unpaid leave for that period, but also the 26th of October was not a working day for Ndanzi, neither was the 2nd and 3rd of November. So that is the reason why he only returned to work on the 4th of November. Now, I picked up some discrepancies with Ndanzi's confession. That firstly, In Ntanzi's confession, he says that the person who leaked the information with regards to the murder of Senzo Meyiwa was Umuzi Sibiya, and there was a fight between the Sibiya brothers, being Ululama and Jabulo. But when you look back into Absalom Zungu's statement, he mentions a Mafiga Ntanzi and a Begiseni Ntanzi. So already you can see that there's a contradiction with the names that are mentioned with regards to who was fighting over this incident about the Senzo Meyiwa case or the Senzo Meyiwa killing Mahlabathini back home. Now, Gininda goes on to mention the similarities between the two confessions that Ntanzi made, which is Exhibit HH and Exhibit JJ. And he just points out the similarities and saying, yeah, he received a call. The names that are mentioned are the same. This incident happened in 2014. He was working in Carltonville. The car, he mentions a car that was a getaway car. Those are all the similarities. But what he doesn't mention is the discrepancies, because they owe so many. Let's start right at the beginning of the confession. In the first confession that he did to Rapadu, he says that he was contacted firstly by Umapisa, right? He says he was contacted by Umapisa, and in the background he could hear Mthokoziseni. Now, first of all, Mthokoziseni Mapisa is one person, unless I'm mistaken. So that's the first inconsistency. In the confession to Cronje, he says that he was called by Sfiso Ntuli, and in the background he could hear Marco. Now, isn't it surprising that Ntanzi received a call by one person, could hear another person in the background in two of his confessions, but the people's names mentioned are completely different? And also, if you remember, Moses Sibiya confession as well says that he was contacted by Marco, or he was contacted by Makimbi, and he could hear Marco in the background. Why is it that all these confessions seem to have a sort of similar pattern as to how they all begin? He also does not mention the fact that when Ntanzi mentioned the car in the first confession, it was a Polo, and in the second confession, it's a Vivo that is silver. In Moses' confession, it's a white Polo. So you see the discrepancies in those confessions are saying these confessions could not have been done by one person, first of all, being Ntanzi, because there's so many things that are wrong with them, so many things that are inconsistent with them. He then touches a bit on Umjiyako and the fact that Umjiyako actually came to consult with Ntanzi on numerous occasions, which is new evidence before this court, because nothing has been laid with regards to Mjiyako's consultations at the police station. We only know of one that Gininda mentioned in the trial within a trial, and that was, I think, the day before that he was meant to go to Magistrate Cronje. But then now Gininda is mentioning a whole lot more occasions, which Umshololo objects to because they were never placed on record. Those were the proceedings for Tuesday, and on Wednesday, the 30th of October, it was brought to our attention that Advocate Mgomezulu would not be in court up until Monday, the 4th of November. He has been booked off sick, and Advocate Mnesi will continue to stand in on his behalf. When Gininda leads the evidence with regards to the people in the house being at the clinic or at clinics during a certain period, he says that everyone in the house's cell phone was pinging at clinic. Ramusipili then makes an objection saying that Gininda saying everyone in the house's phone was at clinics isn't the correct assertion, because Zandi Kumalo had testified about the mother's cell phone being on a charger and finding Senzo's cell phone under the stove. Baloyi then leads the evidence of Pinky Vaithillingham, which does prove that Senzo's phone indeed did go to Clinics Hospital along with the other people that were in the house. So Senzo's cell phone definitely was at Clinics, but Zandi's evidence was that it was at the house when they returned from the hospital. Ramusipili then indicates later that he is withdrawing his objection, and Baloyi then continues to lead the evidence with regards to accused number 2, Ntanzi's bank statement. Now, what is interesting about Ntanzi's bank statement is, firstly, when they go into the records of Capitec, there is a savings account which was opened at the time the Section 205 request was done, and it does indicate that he had previous 2 loans on his account which are now closed. Continues to lead evidence with regards to the photos that were found on accused number 3's phone and some of the downloads that were done by Umabasa on accused number 3's phone. There is a particular photo, I think it was photo 37, if I'm not mistaken, where Baloyi asked Keninda who the person in the picture is, and Keninda clearly, without any hesitation, that the person in the picture with the gold tooth and dreadlocks is accused number 3. Mishololo then stands up and objects and says, "Hey, boo, this is not accused number 3 according to her," but then she says she will withdraw her objection. This all happened before the break, and after the break, apparently, Keninda does apologize and acknowledge that the person in the picture is not accused number 3, as his assertion was before the lunch break. Another interesting thing for me that Keninda spoke about on Wednesday was with regards to the transactions that Ndanzi did on his account around the time of the incident. So firstly, there was a withdrawal on the 24th of October, and as well as the 31st of October and the 1st of November and the 4th of November. Now, mind you, these are the days that he was not at work. And the 4th of November was the day in which he returned to work. Although he doesn't tell us the amounts of the withdrawals that were made, I'm just asking myself, if you're saying that this person was gone to do a hit and was paid 45,000 Rand in cash, why would he be withdrawing money from his account? That's just my question. And the very last thing that they touched on Wednesday was the issue of the measurements that were done on all the accused. Now, if you remember the evidence of Umangena, the ballistic expert, he does say that there was an exercise that they embarked on with the investigating team with regards to taking measurements and heights and checking for injuries on the feet of the accused before the court. Now, Mangena, when testifying, if you remember, he does say that he was with Keninda when they tested Muzi, he was with Keninda when they tested Undanzi. This he said repeatedly when asked by Umgomezulu. He even went as far as saying he wasn't sure if Keninda was in the room, but he was definitely at the police station at Pretoria North when those measurements were done on Undanzi. Now, the interesting thing about this is that everybody else, including Mohola Mohane, denies the presence of Keninda on the 17th of June in that boardroom when Ndanzi was tested. Now, what I found interesting about this very point is the fact that Keninda is so clear with the fact that he tested all the accused. So with accused number 1, he was the first one that they went to test or to measure. They did that exercise. He was there. He led the introductions because he's the lead investigating officer, and. This was done in Valeria. They took the measurements of Umuzi and the exercise was not fruitful. And when it comes to accused number 2, he says he was not present, but other people were responsible for that. But however, accused number 3, he was there. He was part of that whole exercise that was done. Then they went to accused number 5 all the way to KZN. Keninda was involved in that as well. All the way in KZN, Ekalagabusha, Keninda was there. He drove with all the people that drove there to do those measurements. He was there. Then they came back. They went to Leerkop to do the same exercise on accused number 4. And you're telling me that Untanzi is the only one that you didn't go and do these tests with? That's a lie. That's a lie, but that's my opinion. There's no way that as the person leading the investigation, you can say that you did the exercise on all these people and only Undanzi you didn't do. The reason why you're denying the fact that you did these tests on Undanzi is because you no longer want to corroborate anything that Undanzi says, because Undanzi will then be seen as a credible witness. And if Undanzi is seen as a credible witness, it means that the confession, as he said, was beaten up to actually sign. Then that could be true if everything else that Ndanzi says has been proven to be true. And that is the reason why you are denying your presence in that boardroom on that day. Those were the proceedings for Wednesday. And on Thursday, the 31st of October, we had Ms. Groeneveld, who is the representative for accused number 3 and 5 for the special application with regards to the solitary confinement issue that was raised before the court. Now, I don't know why they are trying to make life difficult for these accused in this case, and the person responsible being Keninda. I'm so glad that this whole thing with Ms. Groeneveld unfolded in front of Keninda, because she asked to address the courts, and she says that, you know, she was told that everyone will be cooperating when it comes to the special application that needs to be brought with regards to accused number 3 and 5, but she has not been receiving positive feedback from the correctional service. She says, firstly, she has been requesting to consult with the accused after the court proceedings, and she was told that, you know, they knock off at 4 o'clock. She's unable to consult. She then made alternative suggestions as to how she would consult, and she requested that she then be allowed to come in and consult on a Saturday, and still that was not fruitful. So she has come before the court, and she's now complaining on record that she's finding difficulty in trying to consult with the accused, and even the wardens that are bringing the accused to court were refusing her to give her clients some documentation that she needs them to read through in order for her to consult with them, saying that the CMAX needs to see those documents first. So all of that was put on record by her, and then she requested that the matter of the Senzo Meyiwa case be stood down so that she'll be afforded the opportunity to actually consult with her clients. And the judge does then grant her 3 hours to be able to consult, and the court adjourned for 3 hours to allow Ms. Groenewald or Advocate Groenewald to be able to consult with the clients. Now, the interesting thing about the warden, when he's asked why he doesn't allow the advocate to actually give the information or the documentation to the accused, he says that Mr. Gqebengu doesn't allow any documents to be. The same Gqebengu that was called to this court, and he said he had no knowledge of the fact that accused number 3 was kept in solitary confinement, and now is the same Gqebengu who's giving the attorneys difficulties in trying to get the accused out of solitary confinement. Mr. Gqebengu, sir, please step forward because you're dodgy. Judge Rata then orders the warden to call Mr. Gqebengu and let him know that this is an order by him, and basically client advocate privilege and those documentations should be given to the accused. As we proceeded with the proceedings for Thursday, Ramosipili then raises the point that he had raised yesterday with regards to the cell phone of all the people in the house that allegedly went to Clinique's hospital. He then refers the court to the proceedings of the 19th of July in 2023, where Zandi Khumalo was testifying, and she clearly says that the mother's cell phone was on the stove in the charger, and Senzo Meyiwa's phone was under the stove in the kitchen. Now, the interesting thing about this is Baloyi's response to this, because he says that he is aware of this and he will address it later on during arguments. This to me is saying, Zandi, you're going under the bus. Another interesting thing that the judge actually picked up on is with regards to Gininda's diary and diary entry, which he allegedly made with Umangena on the 27th of July when they went to go collect the gun from Cleveland. Now, if you remember Mangena's testimony, he said that he collected the gun. He was told by Gininda to go collect the gun in Cleveland. He went to Cleveland alone to collect the gun. This was on the 20th of July in 2020. He collected the gun alone. He went to do the test and he returned the gun on the 27th. Now, on the 27th, when he returned the gun with Gininda. So they both went to Cleveland. Mangena booked the gun into the Cleveland station, but according to Umjali, the gun didn't even go back to the safe. As Mangena signed it in, Gininda signed it out. So that is what happened on the 27th. Now, according to Gininda, this whole transaction that was happening was written in his diary. Now, when we look at the diary that he says this transaction was written on the date of the 27th, it's written, you know, handover of the gun, da 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 da. But the funny thing is that there's then writing in another handwriting in the middle, and then it continues to talk about the gun again at the end. Now, for me, this is giving, I started writing something on this day, and then I wrote something else maybe on that specific day again, but later on in the day. And then because now I want this information to fit what I'm telling the court, I'm going to write this information at the bottom and make it seem like it was written on the same day. But that's just me. But what the judge picked up is that the handwritings are not the same. So he says, whose handwriting is on this diary? And Gininda says that the top part of the writing is himself, the middle part is Mohola, and then the last part is himself again. And then there's Mangena's signature. Now, the surprising thing about this is, how is it that Mohola is writing in your diary in an entry on the same day before you write about the gun when she was not there when you collected the gun? Because it cannot be that you went to Cleveland, like I'm here now as Unogwazi, I'm in my house, and if I'm writing something that's happening now, I would obviously write here and here. If something else happens, then you will obviously write after where I've written, right? Then why am I writing about an incident that happened in the morning at the bottom of the diary? Judge Rata, you're onto something there. He then touches on accused number 5's banking records, where I do pick up that accused number 5 does have an address for Mpumalanga in one of his bank statements, which is interesting because it was not accused number 5 that was said to be in Mpumalanga. It was accused number 1 that was said to be in Mpumalanga when Zungu made a call allegedly to him. So my thing is, we already know that the calls in the section 205 from Stain and Coles were manipulated because they were not PDF and they were not matching with Pinky's records. So now my thing is, I think that they could have mixed up information in the cell phone records of accused number 1 and accused number 5, because accused number 5 does have a Mpumalanga address, but accused number 1 doesn't. Now, as we close off the proceedings of Thursday, we then touch on Stain and Holst's evidence with regards to the cell phone data and everything. And the important thing that I picked up on Thursday is the fact that Kininda says that he wasn't aware of the Section 205 from Pinky vithaling him. He was not aware of the Section 205 for accused number 3, until this year. When Pinky testified. Now, this is a lie. I'll get into that towards the end of the video, why I say this is a lie. Today being Friday, the 1st of November, in the proceedings, we heard basically Kininda going through the communications now between the accused, the communication that Muzi allegedly had with accused number 5, accused number 4, accused number 3, and so on and so forth. He led that evidence. All this evidence is already on record. If you want to go deeper into that information, please refer to my previous videos of when Stain and Holst were testifying before the court. Now, one of the interesting things that I found in today's proceedings is brand new evidence from Kininda, where he says that prior to Zungu giving a statement, there were other people or other witnesses that have statements that say that Zungu was present at the hostel. Which witnesses are those and why weren't they called? Because I remember specifically Mshololo asking Uzungu, if that's the case and you were in Vosloorus on the 26th of October, who can corroborate this version? Who else can say that they saw you on that day? And he says no, he doesn't want to get other people involved and. So Kininda, what witnesses are you talking about? Now, Baloyi touches on the issue of Umasondo. Now, if you remember Umasondo, he also did testify in this case, and Umasondo was responsible for the arrest of accused number 3 on the Cleveland case. Sorry, my battery is flashing. On the Cleveland case. Now, Masondo arrested accused number 3 in possession of an unlicensed firearm as well as ammunition, and he did testify in this case. And if you remember, there was a question asked by Umnisi saying, was this gun involved in this case? And I remember the judge was quick to jump in to say, do you really want him to answer the question? But the answer by Umasondo was that no, this gun was not involved in this case, because if it had been involved in this case, I would have known. Now, the funny thing about Kininda talking about Umasondo is the fact that he says that Masondo couldn't have told accused number 3 that this gun was not involved because Masondo 1 was not an investigating officer in CAS 636. Masondo doesn't need to be an investigator in 636 to know that this gun was not matched in 636. Masondo is the person who arrested the gun, so he would know information about the gun. You get me? He then says there is no statement by Umasondo in case 636. If there's no statement by Umasondo, why did Masondo come and testify in case 636? Kininda, are you okay? Alright? Then the third thing is that he says accused number 3 was also like a silent person in this case before the confession, so there weren't any real investigations with regards to accused number 3. And I'm just like, no, but when Umasondo got this gun, they tested it for prior cases, and Senzo Meyiwa's case was a prior case. In fact, it is number 1 on the list of cases that the gun was tested against when Masondo requested for the alibis test. He then says that evidence of Masondo is selective because he doesn't talk about the cell phone, neither does he talk about the ammunition. There was no need for him to talk about the cell phone. The cell phone had nothing to do with the alibis test. He was specifically referring to the gun, and that's why he was able to say it was not involved in any other prior cases to 2015 March or February when accused number 3 was arrested. Now, let's go back to the issue of the section 205 of accused number 3. Now, Kininda says that he was unaware of the section 205 from Pinky vithaling him, which basically gives information to the date of the incident of the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. Now, Kininda, how could you have not known about Pinky's Section 205, because there is only one Section 205 request that was done on accused number 3's phone, and it is Pinky's request. Now, if you remember Kininda's evidence, he says that he, after receiving the confessions from accused number 1 and 2, he then profiled the people that were mentioned in the confessions, which is funny because he never profiled Kelly Khumalo. There isn't anywhere where I hear any information about Kelly Khumalo, who was also mentioned in accused number 2's confession. But asikho lapho. Let's focus on the Section 205 issue. He says that he did not know that Pinky had information with regards to the date until this year when Pinky Vithalingham testified, which is a lie, because Kininda said that after he received the confessions from accused number 2, he profiled accused number 3, and he found that accused number 3 was arrested. When he found that accused number 3 was arrested, he then went into the docket of his arrest and basically found that there was a cell phone, ammunition, and a gun involved in that case. Now, when he found that that information was available, he obviously went into the downloads as well as the Section 205, which were readily available in the SAP system. Now, if you had access to the docket of accused number 3 during profiling, how could you have not known that there was a Section 205 that had information with regards to the day of the incident? Because your focus should have been on the day of the incident. So if they say that there's a Section 205 on the system, you should check the days that are included in that Section 205 to see if you won't get information with regards to what's the day in which you are investigating, because you are investigating, aren't you? Now, that is why I say Kininda is a liar, because he says that he didn't have any knowledge of the Section 205 of Pinky Vithalingham. Iyodwa Section 205 kaMncube, E1, and that is the one that you took for the Cleveland case. So what information are you saying you didn't have? Because you had this information. You had it when you profiled this accused. Also Ubaloyi asked him about the case ID. Now, the funny thing is that he only mentions one case ID. And do you know why he mentions one case ID? Because you can't have two case IDs for one request. The requests for Section 205 from Ncube were requested once in 2015. And that means there is one case ID for that. The rest of the accused, their Section 205s were requested when they were arrested, and the reason why we can't get the date of October 2014 is because they were arrested in 2020. And if you count 3 years prior, because they say they keep the information for 3 years, then obviously they wouldn't get the information for 2014. So Kininda, please stop lying to us. You knew about that Pinky information. You knew about it, and that's how you put your case together, because you knew that accused number 3 was in foster arrest, and so you just needed a person to fall onto. He was in foster arrest, so you tried to gather the information to make it seem like he was at the scene when he never was. As we conclude the proceedings for today, the Judge Rata then asks about a specific doctor. Baloyi refers Kininda to Ngomezulu's proposition that Longwe Twala shot himself in the ankle, and he refers to 2 doctors in his proposition. Now, it's said that the doctor that Ngomezulu mentioned has passed away. Now, the funny thing is the question that Judge Rata asked towards the end. He says, how do you know that this person passed away? You know? And Kininda is like, no, I did my investigation. So the judge is like, when did you do your investigations? And he says, when Ngomezulu put that proposition onto the record, then the state prosecutor told me about it, and then I went to go do my research, and I went to go check at Randburg or Rand Hospital, and that doctor doesn't exist. I wasn't given an ID number, so I don't know the ID number, and I couldn't check if he really was dead. Now, my question is, what are you doing with the defense's witnesses? Why are you investigating the defense's witnesses, first of all? Second of all, if you want to defend the proposition, why don't you bring Longwe's ankle? Tell us that Longwe is not injured. Don't tell us about the doctor, what you're going to do with the doctor. You come here and tell us about Longwe. Tell us about Longwe. Is his foot okay? Come tell us Uguti Ulongwe is not injured on his foot. Then we'll get it. Don't go following the defense's witnesses. And also, have you guys actually thought that maybe Ngomezulu just made up names and Kininda went on a wild goose hunt? those are just my thoughts for the day. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you did enjoy. Those are the proceedings for the week. I will see you guys next week. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Bye.